the news that just kind of sent shockwaves through the NFL on Friday. Deshaun Watson is officially a Cleveland Brown. There were rumblings about this all the way back to last week, and Baker tried to get in front of this when he found out that the Browns had flown all the way to Houston to meet with Deshaun Watson to talk about it. And Baker gets in front of this, sends a big thank you note to the city of Cleveland on social media with the expectation that he's going to be traded. Now, obviously, at the time, that didn't happen. Deshaun actually wanted out of the Browns situation. And for about 2 minutes, it seemed like the Browns were kind of faintly graveling back towards Baker when it seemed like they didn't have any more options. And then all of a sudden, they pull a 360 and it becomes official. They end up actually announcing the trade. They acquire Deshaun Watson for 3 first-round draft picks in 2022, 2023, 2024, and then 2 other compensatory picks, a 4th-rounder in 2023, or 3rd-rounder in 2023, and a 4th-rounder in 2024. And I think the Browns also received another pick as well, the 5th-round pick in the 2024 draft. So that's the compensation. That's the haul to make it official. And again, this is amid an ongoing lawsuit against Deshaun Watson, in which there are 22 ongoing civil lawsuits filed against him. Now, obviously, the big wrinkle in all this is that the Texas grand jury didn't indict him on any criminal charges. It doesn't exonerate him from anything, but clearly it provided enough cover for the Browns organization to say, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and pull the trigger on this deal. So here's the interesting thing about a trade like this, because clearly what Jimmy and Dee Haslam, the owners of the Browns, Andrew Berry, the GM, Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, what this is saying is that they fully believe that they have a championship team. They fully believe that when you look at this roster from top to bottom, it should be contending not only for the AFC, but for a Super Bowl. That's the message, is that, hey, look, we look at our roster from top to bottom. We have an elite backcourt, not backcourt. I'm in March Madness back in basketball season. They have an elite backfield with Kareem Hunt and, of course, the all-pro running back Nick Chubb. They've got a tremendous offensive line. They've got enough weapons. They just signed Amari Cooper. They're trying to re-sign Jarvis Landry. They still have David Njoku. So you've got enough weapons. Defensively, your secondary is elite with Ward and Johnson. You've got Myles Garrett. You had Jadeveon Clowney. I'm not sure if they re-signed him already, but that I'm sure would be a priority for them. So they have all the components of a really good team, but what they feel like they were missing was an elite quarterback. And to be fair to the Cleveland Browns, as much credit as I do give Baker Mayfield for gutting it out last season and playing through the litany of injuries that he did, and anyone who tries to debunk that or say that Baker Mayfield was healthy playing last year, they're just ignorant and they've got a preconceived bias against Baker Mayfield. He was injured. He was playing with like a torn labrum in his shoulder. He had all these kind of issues going on. So I don't think last year was an accurate reflection of Baker Mayfield at his very best. But at the same time, I do think that if you have a Deshaun Watson with this roster, and again, this is assuming that he is cleared to play. The NFL still reserves the right to suspend him pursuant to their code of policy, their code of conduct policy. So no one is suggesting that he's going to be playing next year, but the reality is, if you take Deshaun Watson and the talent and the production that he had a full season ago and you insert him into that Cleveland Browns lineup last season, who knows what type of run they ultimately make. They for sure qualify for the postseason. They for sure reach the playoffs, at the bare minimum, the wild card game, if not anything higher. And I think that it does make them a contender in the AFC now, especially now more than ever, You look at the AFC and you look at how loaded it is from top to bottom. Obviously, the AFC West is a murderer's row with the Broncos retooling and revitalizing, signing Russell Wilson. Obviously, Randy Gregory just came as well. You've got all those weapons. They're going to be kind of reinvigorated to play a little bit more inspired, I think, this year. And that home field is going to be a major factor for them next season. Got the Chargers retooling. They obviously still have Justin Herbert, but you go out and sign Khalil Mack to pair him with Joey Bosa. They re-signed Mike Williams. So they're getting a little bit stronger. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs. Whether or not they've necessarily made substantial improvements, they reached the AFC Championship game again last season, so they're still elite. And again, now the Raiders, they traded for and they signed Chandler Jones and Devontae Adams. So they're going to be a whole lot better. Not to mention you've got Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in the AFC. The Ravens had the best record in the AFC before he got hurt, and then COVID struck everyone down, and they were kind of this beleaguered team just trying to float above water with Tyler Huntley, who I like, but he's not Lamar Jackson. Then you've got the Buffalo Bills still there. They just signed Von Miller. So you've got so many teams. It's so saturated in the AFC that it's just an arms race to see who can top the next team's biggest moves in the offseason. That's really what this comes down to. And so then I didn't even mention the Bengals, who won the AFC last year. Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. So this is the trend that the AFC is going into, is that if you don't have an elite quarterback, if you don't have an elite pass rusher, if you don't have elite wide receivers and weapons, you're not going to keep pace. And the Browns are looking at the landscape right now, and they're seeing, okay, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar, who's won an MVP, Josh Allen, who looks poised to win an MVP, a guy in Derek Carr who probably is a top 10 quarterback, maybe a fringe top 8, probably at 9 or 10, a really good quarterback in this conference. They're saying, we got to make a move. And to be honest, I think they have the personnel where this is going to make a substantial difference for them. Now, again, when you look at purely on the field, Deshaun has been sensational since he's entered the league. He's led the Houston Texans to the postseason. In fact, the last full season he played in 2020, 4,800 yards, passing 33 touchdowns, just 7 picks. He's been a Pro Bowler 3 consecutive years since he tore his ACL his rookie season. So, again, I don't know whether he's going to be playing next year. Even if he isn't, he's only guaranteed $1 million against the cap for the Browns next season. That's all that they're required to pay him next season. But then after that, the full $230 kicks in. It's the most amount of money ever fully guaranteed to an NFL player. And again, clearly, based on the research that they and their team did, they felt that not getting indicted for those criminal charges provided enough cover and enough of an impetus to go out and do this trade. And clearly they were not concerned about any of the backlash that's going to be coming their way, all the criticism that's going to be directed in the organization's in their direction. And this is an organization, mind you, that doesn't really care about that because they have shown a penchant for signing guys with a checkered past before. We just saw Kareem Hunt. In 2019, he was cut by the Chiefs after a video was released of him shoving and kicking a woman at his own residence. And a couple months later, the Browns say, come play with us. We'll take you. We're trying to do everything we can. And that's the key thing is the Browns have tried, they've attempted to build up everything the right way. You stock draft picks, you build a team, you draft Nick Chubb, you draft the secondary with Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, you got the defense locked up, you got the offensive line, you try to build in-house. You're lucky enough, you're fortunate enough to collect the number 1 overall pick. You take a quarterback with that pick in Baker Mayfield, and he ends up being good. He's a good quarterback. but he doesn't pan out quite the same way that you want. And at some point, you say to yourself, well, our patience is running thin. We don't want to pay him $130 million or whatever the contract would be. We got to go out and get a star. And they are doing everything they can to try and win right now. And to be honest, I give them credit for it. Again, this is setting aside all the off the field transgressions. No one is condoning anything that's been going on. If any of those lawsuits are found guilty, if he's guilty of any of those, it's appalling, it's abhorrent, and we'll revisit this and have another discussion. But for the time being, knowing everything that we know, all that we're seeing right now is Deshaun Watson is a Cleveland Brown, and that is a substantial upgrade for them.